Okay. What is MYWY and what is its purpose?
So MYWY is a Mustang Training challenge that you can compete in, and it's where you go to a wild horse corral facility and you pick up an untouched and unhandled Mustang, and you got about 100, 150 days, depending on pickup time and things like that, to take the horse that you adopted, this Mustang that you adopted, and train it. So there's multiple different riding divisions that you can compete in, as well as in-hand divisions as well. And you can do a variety of different things. But at the end of this training challenge, there's a big main event that is going to be held in MYWY, Washington. And so at this big main event, all of the competitors come together and they compete against each other to show off their Mustangs and how well that they've worked with them and all of the hard work and effort that they put into these Mustangs during that 100, 150 time frame period. And it's a really good event. It's an opportunity to showcase Mustangs and show their versatility and their trainability, their demeanor, their temperament, and all of those things. You got a variety of different competitors who compete with multiple styles and methods of training. You got all different types of horses that end up in the event, all different sizes, color, ages, and everything like that. So it's a really cool event that, you know, trainers can enter and really show off their abilities at the same time providing opportunities to find these Mustangs with hours.
What are your goals for this horse by the end of the challenge?
So my goals for this particular horse is to, since I entered the riding division, obviously to be riding this horse. But I really want to push myself to the limits with this horse and really see what I'm capable of. So my overall goal for this horse is to create a well-rounded horse that has a solid foundation. Now, because it's only 150 days worth of training, and it's not 150 days of being started under saddle, because we're getting completely untouched and unhandled horses. So we're going to have a pretty good time frame before I'm even able to get on the back of this Mustang. But my goal is to put a good foundation on this horse. And like I said, it's not a really big time frame to be putting an extensive amount of training on a horse. And so this horse isn't going to be completely broke or finished. They're going to be more green. But this horse, my goal is to give them a solid foundation for everything that she's going to need to know when it comes to being sold and going to a new home, so that person can pick up where I left off and take that horse in any direction. And so I'm really hoping to give this horse that solid foundation that she's going to need in order to set her up for success in the future, so that no matter what home that she goes to, no matter what direction she goes in, that she's going to have that foundation and understanding and being a good, you know, well-behaved citizen and comfortable and confident under saddle enough that whatever direction she ends up going with her new home, that she's going to succeed within that.
What are your goals for this horse by the end of the challenge? And what specific goals do you have for this horse by the conclusion of this competition?
So my specific goals, now granted, all of this is subject to change because every horse is completely different. And so depending on this horse's temperament and trainability and how much of a challenge she chooses to be for this. Overall, just thinking, just on average, how my Mustangs have turned out in the past in this time frame. I'm really just looking to have a really good, solid horse with a good foundation. I want all of those foundational things that she's going to need to know. I want her to be able to do haunch turns, side passes, giving to seat and leg cues, neck reining. I want to be able to throw a rope off of her. My goals is hopefully here on the ranch when we're branding at the beginning of May, I'm already on her and she's already have the foundation set so I can actually rope some live cattle off of her. I'm really hoping to get a really good stop, getting her starting to carry herself balance and all of those things. I'm really excited that I got a more mature horse, a 5-year-old, for this challenge, because that means that when she's ready to do the more, refined things, that her body's mature enough and she's going to be able to do those things. So there's a lot of things that when it comes to me starting colts, if they're 2-3 years old, that I kind of wait with. trying to establish true collection engagement of the hind end and lateral movement and things like that. I really try to wait for those younger horses because they're still growing. And you might teach them how to carry themselves balanced as a 2-year-old, and then they grow some more, and you're going to have to reteach it later. And they're just not quite mature enough, and their body's changing too much to really solidify those things because they're going to be changing all the time. Since I got a 5-year-old that is pretty much mature, it's really exciting for me to be able to know that, if she gets to that stage where we're able to start teaching collection and engagement of the hind end and proper usage of her body, I'm really excited that I will be able to move forward with those things. But like I said, 150 days, it's kind of a short time frame, especially when you're going from completely untouched, terrified of people to under saddle. So my goal is really to just get a solid foundation on this horse and get really good control of her and where she's comfortable and confident in all of the maneuvers and how people ride her and when people ride her, and that she's trusting of people in general.
What training method or style will you be using with this horse? And can you describe the training philosophy and approach you plan to use throughout this challenge?
So my training philosophy and method and style goes back, has roots tied to the traditional vaquero style of training. All of that, when it comes to training horses, it's all about setting a horse up for success and letting them find the things and building their trust and their confidence throughout those things. Nothing is forced, nothing is, pushed and, sped up, to get results sooner. Everything that a horse does is supposed to be correct, it's supposed to be soft, it's supposed to be fluid, it's supposed to be confident. And so those are my goals, and that's my training philosophy. Everything that I do with my horses is at their pace. It's not at a certain pace of, these are my goals within, within a week, I want this done. Next week, I want this done. Next week, I want this done. It's all about how the horse handles and what the horse is telling me that they're ready for. And so time frame for each horse, especially when it comes to untouched Mustangs, can be drastically different. I've had some untouched Mustangs that I was on their back and riding within 2 weeks, and I've had some that 2 months later I still couldn't get a saddle on their back. It's all about the horse, and it's all about what they're telling me they're ready for, because I don't want to do anything that is going to cause this horse to shut down and just roll through the motions. My whole philosophy in training is setting a horse up for success and doing it in such a way that when they are doing these things, that they feel cool, they feel confident, and that they're free moving and relaxed doing those maneuvers and proceeding forward with their training. I want to make sure that when these horses go down the road, especially when it comes to this competition horse, I want to make sure that when she ends up in the next home, whoever ends up adopting her at the end of this challenge, that they're going to have a horse that's going to be able to think and process through things when things get scary, when things get tough. I want a horse that stops and looks to the rider for guidance instead of freaking out and blowing off, bucking, rearing, having big explosive reactions and things like that. I want a horse that really looks to the rider for guidance and looks to them for true leadership in a way that they're confident and trusting with. And so all of my training and everything that I do with my training is about establishing that relationship with your horse. And so like when it comes to, putting a saddle on and riding them and everything, a lot of my first rides on horses, I don't have any bucking, I don't have any bolting, rearing, anything like that. I don't have big explosions with my horses when I start riding them, because everything that I do is setting them up for success. And at the same time, I'm teaching them when things get scary and they want to react, they want to stop, think, slow down, and to look to me for that guidance and to build that trust and that confidence in me, so that when those things do happen, that they know, instead of reacting and freaking out, that they could stop and go, hey, what do I do now? And you could say, well, we just need to move our shoulders this way and get around it. Or, they don't have this big explosion. They're stopping and thinking and processing through things, and at the same time waiting for guidance from their rider and the person that's, handling them at that time. And so that's kind of my whole training philosophy, and that's my plan with this horse, is to utilize that and to move forward with that training philosophy. Now, with this being a 150-day challenge, a lot of the old vaquero style training, it's years and years and years worth of training to get a finished horse. And like I said, this horse isn't going to be finished. She's going to be truly broke or proven. She's going to be a green horse. She's not going to be, it's only 150 days from untouched to trained. But so I'm going to challenge myself in ways, knowing that I don't have 5 years to get a super prug horse. And so there's a lot of things that I might be doing a little bit differently than I've done in the past. So this time I'm planning on correlating, groundwork while under saddle. As soon as I can get on this horse's back and I can feel that they're not going to have a big explosive reaction with me getting on them, I'm going to be getting on their back. I'm not going to be spending months and months of groundwork with this horse, but teaching them all these specifics of groundwork before getting on their back. But as soon as I feel like that we have that relationship, that I can put a saddle on her and I can get on her and start riding, I'm going to continue on working with the groundwork and teaching her things on the ground. But also at the same time, those things are going to be correlating and tying into what we're working with under saddle at the same time.
What should potential adopters expect when you are finished with this horse? Like at the end of the competition, what qualities, skills, and foundation can potential adopters expect this horse to have?
So like I touched on before, this horse isn't going to be broke or proven. This is going to be a green horse. But a lot of the things that you can expect this horse to do is have all of the foundational things that they need to move forward in any discipline. So it doesn't matter if you're going to be potentially jumping this horse or doing endurance or barrel racing or using her as a ranch horse or whatever it may be, riding English, getting into dressage. This horse is going to have all the foundational things that she needs to know to move forward in whatever discipline. So we're going to have control of her body, her feet, and the speed of that and how she functions and carries herself. She's going to be able to do haunch turns, forehand turns, be able to move her feet where you want them, when you want them, how fast you want them to. She's going to give to seat and leg cues as well as starting into neck reining and things like that. She's going to be able to bend and move her rib cage and frame herself around the leg, be able to pick up and carry herself balanced and all of those things. And so she's not going to have anything advanced really done with her, but she is going to have all of the foundational things that no matter what direction she ends up going in her new home, that she's going to have everything that she needs to know to go that direction. All of that basic body control and maneuverability within herself. So that way it doesn't matter if you decide that you want to go forward moving with dressage. She's going to be able to bend and maneuver her body and understand that when you ask her to pick up her ribs, she's going to be able to do that. When you ask her to engage her hind end, she's going to be able to do that. Doesn't matter if you're going into barrel racing, you're going to be able to ask her to bend and frame around your leg at a high speed of rate going around a barrel. Doesn't matter if you're going to go into jumping and all of those things. She's going to know all of the foundational things that every horse should know within being started under saddle within 90 days so that she can move forward in any direction.
How should potential adopters prepare to bid at the final event? And what advice would you give to those interested in adopting this horse?
So for potential adopters who are interested in this horse or any other horse that's in the MYWY competition, this year what they are doing is they are doing a buy it now option. So after a certain period of time, I believe it is July 1st, there will be an option to purchase any horse that is competing in the MYWY option, as long as the competitor is able to compete in that final event on the last weekend of July 30th or August 1st. So it's kind of more like just a personal sale, how you averagely would go through purchasing a horse. The only difference is that you're going to have to fill out a BLM application for these horses. And so I tell a lot of people, if you see any horses that you're potentially interested in, even now at the beginning of this event, when you're seeing all of these horses, I recommend a lot of people go out and fill out a BLM application and do state on there that you are looking to purchase a already trained horse from the MYWY event. The BLM application is set up primarily for horses that are untouched. So there's a lot of things on the application that are going to say, like, you're going to have, it says that the requirements are going to be like 6 foot solid fencing. A lot of these horses are not going to need 6 foot solid fencing. Most of them are probably going to be turned out. My mare, I know by the time the competition comes around, she'll be turned out with the rest of my horses in the fencing that we have, and it's not 6 foot solid fencing, obviously. And so what they're looking for on that application is some sort of solid fencing, just a small pen that you can keep the horse in when you bring it home until it adjusts to its surroundings, understands that this is its new home, somewhere that you can feed and water it for, a week or 2 at a time, and before turning it out to pasture. So my advice to adopters is if you see any horses that you're interested in, make sure that you are filling out that BLM application. The other thing that I recommend too is that if you have the opportunity to reach out to whoever, with the horse that you're interested in, make sure that you're reaching out to them. A lot of them are very open to you coming and meeting the horse prior, making sure that you're clicking and making sure that you work well with the horse. So reach out to those people. If you're interested in my horse or anyone else's horse, make sure that you reach out to them and get an opportunity to go out and meet that horse prior to purchasing it.
When and where is the final event taking place?
So the final event for the MYWY competition is going to be taking place in MYWY, Washington. And then that is also going to be taking place the last weekend of July. So it's July 30th through August 1st. The things that you can expect to see there is a lot of the people are going to be showcasing the horses. All of the competitors are going to be coming together. So the riding division, there's youth and adult riding divisions. And so each of those divisions are going to be competing against each other. You can see how the horse performs and everything like that. And then there's also a freestyle event where each competitor compiles some sort of obstacle or some way to showcase their horse to the best of their ability. So for my freestyle event, what my plans are, and again, this is all subject to change, depending on my horse and how she does. My freestyle event is going to be looking something like I'm planning on doing more of a reining pattern, showing how much control I have of my horse, how balanced she is, how much of a handle she has, how well she does, not just at walk, trot, canter, but high speeds and slow speeds, and how well she does and how in tune she is with me. And then if things all go well, according to plan, I would love to showcase this mare by riding her bridleless in my freestyle. But again, like I said, all of those things are subject to change, and it all depends on my horse and how well that she does. And so for the final event, even if you do the buy it now option and you're technically getting this horse prior to the event, I do recommend people come and watch these horses and watch them compete and support the MYWY competition and support all of the competitors.
Where can we follow along for this horse's progress, as well as how do interested parties get in contact with you about this horse?
So I'm going to be posting a lot of my horse's progress, mainly on my training page on Facebook, which is W's for Horsemanship. I'll also be posting on YouTube, which is W's for Horsemanship as well, as long as on TikTok, which is under the Rare Buckaroo. Instagram will be W's for Horsemanship or the Rare Buckaroo. And my personal Facebook page, I will under Sarah Jean Waddell, and I will be posting all of her progress and how she's coming along and snippets and things like that. In terms of contacting me, you can reach out to me through any of those social media platforms if you're interested in this mare, and I can walk you through the process of filling out BLM applications and all of those things. But as far as following along with this progress, if you look up Sarah Jean Waddell, if you just Google it, all of my social media platforms pop up and you will be able to find me through there. And it will be very, very easy for a lot of people to just search and find if they want to follow along with this progress.
any advice for someone looking to get into training Mustangs?
So as far as anyone who is interested in getting into training Mustangs, my recommendation for a majority of those people is first, have some sort of training experience, working with a mentor or something along those lines. Not only when it comes to like starting colts under saddle, but also riding finished horses. When you learn to ride and how to maneuver and how to work a finished horse, it completely changes how you work with starting a colt under saddle. And so it's really, really important that you know how to ride a truly finished and really well-broke horse when you're looking into getting to starting horses under saddle. When it comes to training Mustangs, it's kind of a different level. On one hand, Mustangs are not different than domestic horses because a horse is horse. It doesn't, they all think, they all process and things the same. The thing that is different about Mustangs is that when you get an untouched Mustang from the corrals, they're genuinely scared of people. They don't see you any differently than any other predator they could possibly run into on range. So they think that you are going to eat and kill them, kind of thing. And so being able to understand a horse's body language and understand, when it is extremely important to give pressure and when to take that pressure away and release it is extremely important, that it's going to help that horse progress and build their confidence and trust in you. Once you get past that point and get to where that Mustang is trusting you, they're just the same as any other horse. But when it comes to Mustangs, getting that trust is the most difficult part of training a Mustang because, like I said, they don't see you any different than any other predator. They're genuinely scared. And there's different forms with Mustangs, how they can react out of that fear of you. You can have your avoidant Mustang who's just going to have a really big comfort bubble, and they're going to try their best to keep you out of it by going anywhere and everywhere that you are not. You got your Mustangs, which is second most common, is the ones that are ultra reactive. They're going to try to do anything possible to get away from you. So that's why the BLM has their 6-foot solid fencing requirement, is because you're going to have Mustangs jumping fences. You're going to have them testing panels. Think of yourself in that situation. If you thought somebody was going to kill you and harm you, you would do anything possible to get away from that person, right? And so we have to make sure that we have solid fencing and a containment for those horses for when they are reactive like that, to make sure that they're not escaping. And then the third form which is the most uncommon, but it still happens, which is aggressive. And knowing how to read a horse is extremely important for this, dealing with an aggressive Mustang, because a lot of people will mistake aggression for confidence because they expect an avoidant or reactive Mustang, and you get in the pen and this horse is just standing there. And they're not running away from you. They're not avoiding you. They're not trying to jump away and get away from you. And so knowing how to understand those mini and micro signs of aggression of a Mustang or of a horse in general is really, really important. Understanding herd dynamics of the Mustang when they're out on range and what they do when studs come together and they're aggressive with each other and stuff like that. So you can read those signs of, and not mistake it for confidence. Because when I worked at the BLM, when Mustangs were returned for aggression, the most common thing that I heard was people saying that, they came across so confident, they were so secure, like they weren't scary, they weren't reactive, they were, they just weren't what we were expecting. And we just out of nowhere, this horse lunged and bit us, or came and struck me, or turned around and kicked me when I got close to it. And it was all because people are confusing aggression for confidence. So when it comes to training Mustangs, advice that I give to people is knowing how to read a horse really, really well. Knowing, each type of horse, when to apply more pressure, when to release that pressure, how much pressure you apply, and really having a good solid foundation and understanding a horse and their body language. Because starting an untouched Mustang is different than starting a domestic horse, even if they are unhandled. And so I find it really, really important that people know how to read a horse really, really well. And then on top of that, knowing how to maneuver and how to work a horse at the finished result, so that when you do start that horse under saddle, you're not making those mistakes, you're not teaching bad habits, and you're not doing things that are setting this horse up for failure when it comes to finishing them down the road.
What started your passion for working with Mustang horses?
So my journey with Mustang horses was entirely by accident. My husband and I had been working at ranches and stuff like that. And when you're working as a cowboy, you don't make much money. And so we had gotten to this ranch where we needed our own horses, and we didn't have the money to go and buy, well-papered horses, even if they weren't started under saddle, because even one that was just halter broke ready to be started under saddle was more than an entire month's wages for us. And so we couldn't afford that. And then I discovered the TIP program, which is no longer a thing, but you could adopt halter broke Mustangs. And I've been training horses for a long time. I've been training for about 10 years at that point. And so I knew that I could start a horse under saddle. And I was like, hey, $125 for a halter broke horse, like, you can't go wrong with it. So I adopted a couple of Mustangs to start under saddle and use as ranch horses. And when I started using these Mustangs as ranch horses, like, they had a lot of the qualities that I looked for in ranch horses. Ranch horses, I mean, they need to have grit. They need to be trainable. They need to know how to read a cow. They need to know how to maneuver in and out of steep, rough, nasty, rocky country. They need to be tough. They need to be durable and, be able to maneuver through all of these different things. And they need to go, be able to go 30 miles in a day up and down really nasty, steep, rough country, in and out of cows and all the dry, hot weather, cold, rainy snow. And Mustangs really had all of these qualities that I was looking for in ranch horses. And so I found myself falling in love with the Mustang for the line of work that my husband and I do, because they naturally had all of these abilities and all of these things that made a great ranch horse. And so it was a really easy decision for me to decide to start training Mustangs and using them for ranch work. And so I ended up going and I'd adopt untouched Mustangs from the corrals, and I would train them for a year, because when you sign, when you adopt a Mustang, generally you have a year-long contract with the government, and it's called a care agreement. And then after that year, you get your paperwork signed out showing that you've taken care of this horse and that you've shown that you've proven that you have the ability, the funds, and the means to take care of a horse. And then they give you the title and you're able to do whatever you want with that horse. And so I would take Mustangs and I would train them and I would get them titled, and then I would sell them. If they didn't work out to be ranch horses, I would find a good suitable one that was more suited, if they were, I thought that they would be better at trail riding and just be kind of, rode on occasion, out on the trail, easy going, sell them to a family that does that. If I thought that they would be better at endurance, I'd sell them to a family that does that. And the ones that made fantastic ranch horses, I kept for myself, and which really ended up acquiring a lot of Mustangs over the years, because a lot of them proven themselves to be fantastic ranch horses. And, it was really, really nice to have a horse. Mustangs have really hardy feet. And so one of the things that in some of the ranch horses that we got, if you lost a shoe on your horse, if you continued your day of working, you knew your horse was going to be lame for the next 3 weeks until their hoof grew out and you're out of horse. Mustangs, we put front shoes on our Mustangs only just because it makes us feel better. They don't need them. We've never had one of our Mustangs go lame. If they lose a shoe while you're out pushing cows and you still got 20 miles to go before your destination, you know that their foot's going to hold up and they're not going to be lame for the next 3 weeks because you got to finish your job. And there's a lot of things like that. They're just so hardy. They're so gritty. They're so, a lot of these Mustangs have, that cow horse mindset. Their ability to read a cow comes naturally to them. And it comes very nice, especially for a working ranch horse. Now, do I expect a Mustang to win, the world championships of cutting, reining, and things like that? No. But when it comes to everyday ranch work and what my husband and I do, they make fantastic horses for that. And I've come to admire them and prefer them for our line of work because of all of those traits that they exhibit and all those traits that they just naturally have. And so that's how my Mustang journey began.
Any differences you've noticed between training Mustangs versus domestics?
So when it comes to training Mustangs, like I touched on earlier, when you adopt an untouched Mustang, they exhibit that fear. They don't see you any differently than any other predator that they can come into on range. They have an inherited fear of humans, and it's not just a weariness of people. It is a genuine. They are terrified of you, and I would say that that's about the only thing that's different from Mustangs than domestic horses. Prior to even getting into Mustangs, I worked with a lot of untouched and unhandled domestic horses that were 5-6 years old. But a majority of those domestic horses, they still had human interaction. They still were fed by people. They still were watered by people. They still had regular and routine human presence around them from day one, from being born. Even though they may have not been touched, they may not have been handled or specifically trained, they still understand that people are a predator. They understand that humans aren't there to harm them. Mustangs, they don't understand that. And so when it comes to training Mustangs, that's the thing that I like to tell people a lot of. It's like, you need to understand that these Mustangs are genuinely terrified of you. Like, literally, they will do anything that they see fit, that they feel like they need to do in that moment to get away from you because they feel like that you are going to hurt or kill them. Once you get a Mustang to the point where their halter broken, they're trained, and they're understanding that you aren't going to hurt or kill them, they're just the same as any other horse. And I tell people that all the time. And there's a lot of people out there that are huge Mustang people that disagree with me. And I say, horses are horses. It doesn't matter if it's Mustang. It doesn't matter if it's thoroughbred, Arabian, quarter horse, or whatever. Your approach of training them should be the same. There isn't some mystical or magical way of getting a Mustang to load in a trailer. It's going to be the same. I mean, my approach is going to be the same with a horse that is hard to load, whether it's Mustang, thoroughbred, Appaloosa, paint, quarter horse, whatever it may be. My approach is going to be the same, getting that horse. My method is going to be the same, getting that horse to load in the trailer. And a Mustang is just another horse. Now, granted, things like the timing of your pressure and release, how much pressure you put on, how often you give them release is going to change. But the approach, when you boil it down, is all the same. And it doesn't matter. A Mustang is still just a horse. But when it comes down to it, the only difference between a Mustang and a domestic horse is that when you get an untouched Mustang, they're genuinely terrified of people, whereas a domestic bred and formed horse, even if they're unhandled and untouched in the same manner, they're not going to have that inherited fear of humans.